In this video, we're going to take a look at parsing by value and parsing by reference in Go. If you've come from another language, you may be familiar with this concept. If you are not familiar with it, don't worry, we will explain it and you'll understand it by the end of this video. Let's start off then with some kind of definitions of what we mean by parse by value and parse by reference. So parse by value essentially passes a copy of the value. And this means that the caller of the function cannot see any changes to the copied value. And the types that are passed by value in Go are numbers, booleans, arrays, and structs. In contrast, pass by reference means that when you pass a reference to a function and you modify the reference, the caller of that function can see those changes. And this happens on slices, strings, although they are immutable in Go, maps, channels, and pointers. Now, don't worry about channels and pointers. We've not seen those yet, but it's just good to know that they are passed by what's known as reference. Now, that probably doesn't mean much if you're not familiar with the concept. So the best way to explain this and illuminate it for you is to run through some examples. And we'll start off with an example of pass by value, as this is the easiest to understand. And we'll use an array. So let's go ahead and create a new function. We'll call this function example, and it's going to take an array. It's going to be of length 3, and we'll just pass in some integers there. We'll also return an integer from this function. In this function, we're going to go ahead and update the 0 index of the array to equal the number 0. We'll then just return that array 0. Fairly straightforward there. So in our main function, we'll declare a new variable a, and we'll go ahead and create the array. So it'll be an array of integers, and we'll pass 1, 2, 3. We'll then get a result from calling our example function and passing it in our newly created array of 1, 2, 3. We'll then go ahead and print out these results. So we'll print out a, just so we can see exactly what a looks like. We'll then print out the result as well, and we'll just stick a new line here so it's clear what's going on. Okay, before we run this code then, let's just run through exactly what's going on. So we create a array with the integers 1, 2, 3. We then pass that array to our example function. In our example function, we simply set the 0 index of that array to equal 0, and we return the 0 index of the array. We then just print out the array itself and the result. And as we know, arrays are passed by a value. And this means that the caller cannot see any changes as we are passing in a copy of the value. So this basically means here that our res cannot see any changes to the array. And we'll see that in the output of the code. So let's run this. And you can see we get a, 1, 2, 3, and we get the res of 0. And this happens because arrays are passed by value. So let's just run through it again to make sure this is clear. So we're passing by value because this is an array. So we're passing the array of 1, 2, 3 into our example function. So this example function now has a copy of that array. We then change the 0 index of that array to be 0. That actually only changes the copy locally in this function. It doesn't change the actual argument we have passed in. So this a still stays as 1, 2, 3. So you can essentially think of it, only in here do we actually have 0, 2, 3. And we know that because we can return the 0 from here. When we come back out, again, because we passed by a value, we get the original a here, the original array itself, which is 1, 2, 3. And we get the output of 0 because that's what we are returning from this local array. So this is an example of pass by value. Essentially, we cannot change these values anywhere other than where they actually belong. So we can change them here. If we wanted to set a0 to be 0 here, that would be totally fine because it's within that scope. But because we are passing by value, we essentially create a new copy, and that copy is passed in here. We can do whatever we want to that copy, manipulate it however we want, but we don't alter this original value here. So that's pass by value. You cannot change the result from the caller's point of view. So in this case, the caller is here, the res is here, is the caller, and we can't change the value of our array here. Now we can use the same example and make it be pass by reference with a couple of little changes. So arrays are pass by value, slices, however, are pass by reference. So let's go ahead and change this to be a slice. We'll get rid of the count there. We'll then change this to be slice. And we'll delete that line there because it doesn't make any more sense. And then go ahead and change A to be an actual slice, and we will see the result of what actually happens here. So I'll leave the previous one of the pass by value so we can compare. Okay, so if we run this, we can see that this time we get a different output from the first time. So we actually get 0, 2, and 3. And this is because slices are passed by reference. So we create our slice here of 1, 2, 3. We are then passing a reference to the example function. We then edit that slice. So we set it to be 0 in the 0 index. We then return that number, and we then output those results. So you can see here that this time it is 0, 2, 3. And that's because we've passed the reference to that slice. And that means that our caller can see any changes to the values within that slice. Now, in practice, pass by reference means we pass what's known as a descriptor in Go. And you can kind of think of this as passing the address of the first index of the particular slice, in this case, the 0 index. And we can actually explain this a bit more with printing it out as well. So let's go ahead and print out the address of A. So we'll print out the address. I'm going to use %p, which prints out the address. We'll then just dump in a new line there just to make it easier to see. Okay. And then within our example as well, we'll do the same thing. So we'll make this the slice address, and we shall do slice. It's not a slice, it's just slice. Okay, let's go ahead and run this, and we will see that we get the same address. So for A as we do for slice. And again, because this is passed by reference and not by value, it's the same address. So let's sum up what we mean by passing by value and passing by reference. As we've seen, when you pass by reference, the caller of that function can see those changes. So in this slice example here, the main function is the caller, so we can see any changes that happen downstream in the functions. In this case, in our example function, we can see any changes that happen to the A slice. However, when it's an array, so when we pass by value, we cannot see any changes. The caller cannot see any changes. And the way to think about it is basically, if you're passing A by value, just think of this example as a black box. You can't see inside it, you can't see any changes. Whereas when you pass by reference, anything you do inside example will be reflected outside of example. So from the original caller, in this case, the A variable. Now, hopefully you understand pass by value and pass by reference a bit more.